3 years back, if you would have talked about 10 minutes delivery, people would have told you, nah.
Do people really need everything in 10 minutes?
There were times when they would be like, I ordered this, like I ordered 4 items, but like, you know, some of them are not there. A great product engineer is a partner to other people, a good partner to other people. Today, very, very easy for a customer to come on Twitter and like speak their heart out or maybe shout their heart out. But it is very hard for a delivery boy to actually come and really express it, right?
Hi everyone, welcome to episode 7 of the AirTrap podcast. Joining us today is Sanchita Kausal, former engineering manager at Blinkit. Sanchita is a remarkable leader and problem solver known for building exceptional teams. With over 7.5 years of experience at Blinkit, Sanchita has played a crucial role in shaping supply chain, consumer products, and spearheading innovation. So, Sanchita, you spent close to 7.5 years at Grofers.
Yeah.
You started as an intern there and moved to engineering manager before you left. I would love to know more about, your journey there.
Okay, so I'll start with my interview experience. And one of my friends joined Grofers and I was already in Gurgaon interning with some other company. And she was like, we have a very fun culture here. You will absolutely love it. At least come and visit us. Like, mil to le ek baar, you will feel the vibe. I went, I didn't know it will turn into an interview experience, okay? So then I went, had a conversation, and in the conversation, it felt like I was interviewing the guy, not the other way around. Maybe that's what will happen today as well. I never know. But coming back, the conversation was great. Like, we talked about things that I was building in the other company where I was doing internship. And then as I was leaving, the CEO, Albinder Dhansa, he saw me leave. And he asked the person who took my interview, who is she? What was she doing here? And he was like, came for an interview. He was like, how is she? He was like, sahi hai, exciting, kafi karne ka is, like, she really wants to do a lot of things. So then he was like, sahi hai, to hire kar lo. And then just that conversation and that, I left and then somebody called me that you're hired. And I think that's the beauty about the earlier phases of being in a startup, that things turn into magic. And I think, and as I joined, most of the people would, as most of the people would feel, I was also super excited about QR engineering because I was already working on an engineering project in another place, right? The first phase was so exciting because that set the ground for me becoming a good engineer. And very few people realize this, that how critical hiring is. And I think that first exposure to hiring in the very first few days of, me joining, and in the very first few, months of, a startup, right? So I think that gave me a lot of exposure into how to think about engineering then. Because now you're thinking about what will you ask a person who is coming and, is interviewing with you. So then I think a lot of those non-engineering things turned into a lot of engineering-related learning.
How long did it take for you to, start interviewing people after joining there?
Oh, I think very interesting. So a lot of people, when I will call them, they would not realize that I'm an intern. Because the introduction never happened like that. It was like, okay, hi, I'm Sanchita Kaushal from Grofers. This is what we are looking forward to. These are the kind of things that we are, thinking of doing in the next few months. But when they'll come and I'll greet them, they'll be like, I am here to meet Sanchita. I'm like, yeah, I am Sanchita. And this is, I think, 1 to 2 weeks. I think my first week was where I actually started talking to people and calling them, because Ankur already had a list.
And Ankur is the CTO.
Ankur was the person who was managing both product and engineering. I think at that point of time, there were no designations. Grofers remained without designations for a really long time. It was only into the 2017, 2018 that we started having roles like SD1, SD2, SD3. Otherwise, Vedic, who was VP engineering, Ankur, who was he's actually done a lot of things in a lot of different domains like marketing, product, engineering, right? None of these people would call themselves as VP of this or that. They would just call themselves as software engineer or a growth hacker or something like that. A very simple designation that would tell them what they are passionate about, and no attachment to titles whatsoever.
That's very interesting. What was the reasoning behind that? Like, I think many startups want to do this, but they run into lots of issues. So I wonder, because you spent so much time there and you are saying only around 2017 and 18, they started thinking about, giving proper designations. So what was the reasoning behind not giving it in the early years?
Yeah, I really feel that all these people and the people that we hired in the early years were all very passionate about building something. And because we saw that passion in them, it never mattered to us only. Like, it was only when we realized that hiring was, like, into 2017-18 was becoming difficult because we wanted to hire for really senior roles. And because we had 2 offices, Bangalore, Gurgaon, right? I think that's when this thought came into picture. Like, I'll be very honest with you. A lot of people think of, used to think of myself as an engineering manager, but I never thought of myself as an engineering manager, right? I always used to think of myself as a problem solver. So you give me a problem, I will figure out how do I solve that problem. Like, even before I think of myself as an engineer, problem solver was the first thing, because that's how everybody was at Blinkit. Like, there were times when there were people in business who would know nothing about tech, right? But they would come and ask me questions about, yeah, why don't you approach it like this? And if you do it in other companies, people will get super offended. कि यार ये मुझसे मेरे tech के बारे में कैसे पूछ रहा है? What does he know about tech at all, right? But it was not offending to a lot of us. Rather, it was the way that made us think. Like, at least for me, and like I can vouch for like 10, 20 other people, that a business person coming and challenging us on something in engineering was always a welcome thing, because my leaders always, also showed that behavior. They always asked us to empathize with the business, because we are all here ultimately to run a business, right?
Yeah.
So I think having that role modeling, having that mindset of a problem solver was the ground for all these things.
Now that you talked about the expectation there, like, engineers or people in tech, they are also expected to empathize with business. That brings me to the concept of product engineers. What's your thought process on software engineers versus product engineers? Why some companies call their engineers as product engineers these days?
Yeah. So, I am always a believer of simplifying things. And I'll give you an instance of early days of Grofers. So, there were no product people in the company, right? There were only business people, and there were only, engineering people, right? So, each engineer had to then work with multiple business stakeholders. So, now product was a responsibility that was shared between the business person as well as an engineer. And I think that because that's how we all started, that thought process of us being a product engineer, right, was there from the beginning. And that thought of business people also, like, I can vouch for it that all the people who were there in business from the early days of Blinkit are also really good product people. Same goes for engineers. So I think product became then a shared responsibility. And I think how should people think about product engineering is that you become a partner. So when you are trying to, as companies will, as we also grew, we realized that good product engineers are people who will become a partner to a designer when you are exploring a problem. They will become a partner to a product manager when they are defining the problem statement. They will become a partner to another software engineer then when they are actually executing things. And become a partner to a data analyst when they're actually, everything is deployed to production. Now you're trying to analyze what can be the next steps, what is the next iteration looking like. So good product engineer, I know that you can't do all these things, right? So, but a good product engineer tries to identify what are the interests that they have in, between these 4 or 5 things, and how can they contribute. And I think that's what differentiates a software engineer with a product engineer. That product engineer thinks about the product, thinks about how it will be used by a person who you are actually making it for, right? He's going to think about the business as well, he or she, right? Because ultimately you're doing this so that you can build a business. And lastly, I think they also think about technology. But I think they go beyond just the technology, because I think if if you work in product engineering companies, you will realize that engineering is just a skill like everything else. So you learn certain parts of the skills because you want to improve, right? And similarly goes for like all these other things which are also skills as well. So I think a great product engineer is a partner to other people, a good partner to other people.
Got it. How did the industry move to promising 10 minutes delivery? Pros and cons of an approach like that. And what was your experience there?
I think like most of the people will not realize it, but it was a full circle for us. So when we started in 2015, we were a company that used to deliver used to do hyperlocal deliveries in 90 minutes, which means we would take things from a Starbucks or a local kirana shop and deliver it to you under 90 minutes, right? But then we realized challenges like all these marketplaces cannot provide visibility for their own inventory, or they like even when we will give them the dashboards where they can manage inventory separately for us, they would find it super cumbersome to use that piece, and they have to manage multiple systems now. So that became a challenge. And because of that inventory management problem, we realized that, okay, it will be very hard to fulfill the promise that we're making to the customer. So our complaint rates were sometimes high. Even when people used to love us, there were times when they would be like, I ordered this, like I ordered 4 items, but like, some of them are not there. So we realized that, okay, it's a good move to it's a great move to move to a model where we can deliver things from our own warehouses where we store inventory. So I think 2017-18, that was the model that we used, right? And that was the point which set the stage of in terms of software engineering for enabling 10 minutes. Because while a lot of people might find this very counterintuitive, but because we had those systems in place and we used to do a lot of sale events in which we used to call as GOBD, we knew how to scale when it comes to that, right? And even when the model changed during the pandemic, it was not a heavy engineering problem for all the systems. It became a critical scaling problem for 3 systems, and it became a new product problem for like 2 other systems. But it was not that you were building something from scratch, right? So then a lot of things were already in place, ready. You needed to scale up. And we also knew how to scale up because we had experiences with GOBD, right? So I think all these things set the stage. But I think pandemic was a very big trigger. People, I think when we were trying to deliver things and we were not able to fulfill at times because there were so many orders, we realized that 1.5 days, you can't do justice at a time when, pandemic is happening and there's a person who probably is living alone and does not know how to make food, cannot order online. And I think this hit a lot of people. And people were like, 1 day is not acceptable now. So let's try to figure out what is the best that we can do. And because we were also already doing a lot of these experiments, it became very, very clear that, we can deliver things in lesser time. It's just that we need to store something slightly differently. And because we had also done a lot of experiments, both in Innovation Hub and outside Innovation Hub, right? There were a lot of operation team in experiments that were always happening. They also knew what kind of things would probably, I would not say work out, but they had a direction in mind that they wanted to approach. Last time we did this in Jaipur, everything was fine. So which means that this is something that we can try in other places. I think a lot of those iterations happened. And then one critical thing that I think most people don't realize is the acquisition of the real estate. So for us, that funding from Zomato came at a really right time because then we could acquire the real estate closer to big localities, which means we could now really serve in 10 minutes from a place, right? Even though there was a huge tech responsibility, it was also equally important for us to have those real estate, because if we did not have that, maybe we could have done it in 15, 20, 30 minutes, but we would not have been able to have that benchmark of 10 minutes. So that, I think beating the benchmark of that 10 minutes was possible only because of this.
this real estate you are talking about, this is what the industry calls dark stores, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you are saying you had to acquire all these dark stores, closer to the locality that you wanted to serve, and that was possible. That was made possible after the investment from Zomato.
Yeah, so I think there was a loan or something like that which was given from Zomato, because they also realized, like, I think pandemic was also, like, in my opinion, hard hitting for Zomato as well as for Swiggy, right? Which is why both of them also started focusing a lot more on their like quick commerce sort of a business. Like Instamart became that thing for Swiggy, Blinkit became that thing for Zomato. So because delivery business slowed down a lot during pandemic. Yeah.
I want to understand, do people really need everything in 10 minutes?
Okay, so
It's a, burning question on the internet, and I keep coming across something like this every couple of weeks.
So I think you should ask this question in terms of, like, I think of this in two terms. If you are a person who is an imaginative, creative person, you will ask the question of how can you push the boundaries to an extent that a lot of things can be made possible. A lot of impossible things can be made possible, right? And on the other end, I also ask myself this question: how do you, is this really a necessity? What is the pragmatic approach, right? And I think my belief and my theme in life is balance. And I think it is also very important for us to pursue, things which are extremes. Because it's only when you go and attempt an extreme that you truly realize what possibilities exist, right? I can tell you for sure, like 3 years back, if you would have talked about 10 minutes delivery, people would have told you, nah. Or if you would have talked about ChatGPT, people would have been like, you're crazy, right? But only because somebody attempted it, did you really learn that what is the possibility? What can really, really happen? Having said that, I am also a believer that we really do not need everything in 10 minutes. So I think a constant debate and question that used to happen inside Blinkit was, are we really serving the use cases that need real-time fulfillment, right? And a lot of questions used to push us towards, can we sell fresh category products to people? Until the time I was there, I don't know what happened after that, but at least until that time, we were thinking of how can we really make fresh juices available to people who do not have breakfast. Because I think I was working on a project which was around breakfast, and I realized, including me, so many people skip breakfast because they're always in a hurry.
Yeah.
They wake up late. I think people are anxious in the morning anyways because they have to get to a place. And I think it is such a big problem in India. And when you think it from a health and wellness perspective, it's a very interesting, challenging question, right? How can you create a market for something for which already there is a need? But how can you fulfill that need that exists? It's a latent need. Like, we all know that we don't do, at least 50 to 60% people don't do breakfast. It is only in our parents' generation who would push us and make us do breakfast. So it is things like these that would come in question. Most of the people think of that, okay, 10-minute delivery, you're only thinking about how can you sell everything that is in your inventory. No. I think even the inside look of a company is that you're constantly asking yourself this question: what are the use cases where it makes sense? Does it make sense for a party use case? Yes, because which is more of a convenience play for sure. But you also try to ask those questions. If you can make this possible, then there are other lot of use cases that you can make possible in under 10 minutes, like breakfast scenario that I told you.
Very interesting. So the way I'm thinking about it right now, when you are inside the company, you think like, okay, let's try to push the limits and do 10-minute delivery. You would see from data, what kind of products people are ordering. Maybe you had some hypothesis that people would be ordering fresh juice or fresh, fruits. But over time, you realize, you mentioned a party use case, not something I was thinking about. So over time, you realize, okay, these are the use cases for which people are
already
requiring a use case a feature like this. And over time, you can optimize for that.
Yeah, I think it's only when you try and experiment can you really know what is possible. So you're absolutely right.
Sanchita, I have one last question related to 10-minute delivery.
Okay.
And I want to hear your perspective. Because every time I go from office to home and then, come to office, I fear for the lives of the delivery guys.
Okay.
And it feels like many of them are trying to do, those short deliveries, like, 10-minute deliveries.
Yeah.
What's your thought process behind that? When you were building the product, you probably thought what the users wanted, what the business wanted. But what about the delivery guys? They seem like a very important stakeholder in the whole equation here.
I think most people have that thought process as well. And there was a point in time when we had a huge internal debate about this. Like there was a message that our CEO Dippy actually put out on the Slack. How many of us feel, right, that this is unsafe for our drivers? And we realized how little we are inquisitive about the problem when we were part of Blinkit, right? Now imagine people outside Blinkit, they have no awareness of how it happens, right? So I think as part of that conversation, which then became a town hall and there were so many interesting perspectives that came out, one of them being that we're not pushing delivery boys to move faster, right? We are putting real estate and dark stores in a place where most of the places will be under 10 minutes.
Okay.
So the promise of, so I'm not sure if you see your app, but whenever you go and see your app, there is a estimated delivery time that comes on your app. And for a lot of places, it's also 30 minutes. So we have 30-minute stores and 10-minute stores. For places where we really can deliver under 10 minutes, other places which have a real estate which is really, really close to your house. And I think after a point in time, we also realized that there is anxiety that gets induced into delivery boys, even after telling them that, we do not expect you to always deliver under 10 minutes. It is only when we are promising that we expect you to. So I think we all realize that it is very important for us to take away that, anxiety. And so now I think, and it's not about Blinkit only, okay? You should also think about this in terms of how Zepto and Swiggy do it. All of us players in the market now do not show how much is the time remaining for you to deliver to your delivery guy, which is why a lot of times you will also see the delivery guys don't meet those expectations. It happens sometimes in my area because there are periods of traffic when it is so intense, so they are not able to fulfill that promise. But I think again, I'll come back to the previous point that we talked about, right? You have to be inquisitive. You have to be empathetic about what are the things that delivery boy is going through. So I think I think we all agreed that it was very logical that we put those dark stores. But a huge debate point that came up was, are delivery boys anxious by themselves? Because they know that they are partnering with a company which is delivering in 10 minutes. So I think that led to conversation with one of my colleagues who used to lead delivery ecosystem. And I think he was very pragmatic as well as empathetic about it. And he was like, okay, let me think, what are the things that I can do on my app which can take away that anxiety? And what is the source of that anxiety? So I think number one was definitely that timer. So I think that got removed very early on. So I think rather than just being aggressive and worrisome about it, I really would recommend people to talk more about it, be more inquisitive about it, and share their ideas. Because there are times when very interesting ideas come from people who are customers, right? And I think it is very also important if they can share their ideas with us. We also really want to help all these partners, right? So I think that's how I think of it.
So are you saying you guys went ahead and talked to some of ththese delivery partners, understand, where the anxiety is coming from?
It is a very common practice. So it's,
reduce their anxiety.
Yeah. And I think that anxiety can be removed on multiple levels. For example, when a senior leader comes on a call and tells in a town hall that, guys, we do not want you to rush through and, go through accidents, right? That's a security that people feel it in their heads, right? Because there is a senior leader who is coming and understanding your perspective. Because even when, like, all of us can say all these things, but there are times when people still feel anxious about it. For somebody who is, earning that much, right? And, their entire livelihood, probably this one person is the only person making the money in the family, right? So then this is the only job that they have. So they have to ensure that they're earning the money. So a lot of pressures also come from there, which are not at all known to people. There are times when people, come and say certain things to delivery boys, right? So a lot of anxiety also comes from, delivery boys going to certain societies and knowing that people are like that in this society, right? So I think it is very, very critical to hear the delivery boys out as well. What is it that they want to say? What is it like? Because it is today very, very easy for a customer to come on Twitter and speak their heart out, or maybe shout their heart out. But it is very hard for a delivery boy to actually come and really express it, right? So it is the responsibility of the engineers, the product managers, the business partners to be their voices.
No, that's wonderful to hear, because I think many people don't have this perspective, and it's also why, I wanted to share it with our audience so that they understand what goes behind the scenes. It's not like these companies, just wanted to be under the, it's not like these companies were under the pressure from their competitors and they just went ahead and launched. They had to think through all of these possibilities, pros and cons, and then, come up with something that works for all the stakeholders.
Yeah. And I think there are times when people will make mistakes too. And I will say that for Blinkit. I'll say that for myself. I'll say that for my leaders. But I think what you really need to see is there an intent towards solving that problem? Is there intent towards understanding the problem more so that it does not happen the next time?
Sanchita, you started out as an intern at Blinkit and grew to the role of engineering manager.
Yeah.
And when I look at engineers and their careers, many of them aspire to be in a tech lead position or an engineering leader kind of a role, like engineering manager, or eventually a director of engineering and CTO. I want to learn more about your experience as an engineering manager, and also, what would be your advice to early engineers and navigating their careers, how they can navigate it to, to be in a leadership position after a few years.
So I think I do not believe at all in titles. I think we already talked a bit about it, and I think for a really long time, the whole feeling of engineering manager did not sink in for me. I have always thought of myself as a problem solver who was aspiring to be a leader, right? And when you are trying to be a leader, your goals are very simple. How can you inspire your team to reflect and act? Very, very simple. And how can you set high benchmarks for them, right? And if you think about these things more deeply, I think your job is just this much. And then there will be obviously nuances when you will be asking these questions from yourself, as in, what is it that I can do right now? What is the stage at which my team is in right now? What help do they need from me? What kind of help do we want but we don't have, right? What kind of skills we already have and we are super great at but we're not able to leverage, right? So I think leadership is a lot about how can you see what is in your surrounding, what is missing, and reflect on that, and then keep iterating on top of that. So I think a lot of my engineering manager journey came from that thought process, because a lot of my leaders were also very inspiring that way. They also never pushed me to do certain things that I'd never wanted to learn. And I think, they always encouraged me to work on my strengths and double down on my strengths, because it's very easy to look into what you don't know as an engineer. There is 10,000 things that you will not know as an engineer, right? And evaluating and benchmarking people in your team based on that is always going to be very unfair to the person as well as to the team, because then this person will never be motivated. They will never give their best. But when you start looking at what is the strength this person has, what is the strength this person has but does not realize this person has, right? Then you start bringing magical moments. Like there have been times in past when, like, there's an engineer who is really good at like design. So they are working on like user research related stuff, right? And that's what they wanted to do. But that also does not mean that you stop being an engineer, right? But when such partnership happens, right, your flaws kind of seem to fade away because you're doubling down on people's strengths, and these people then become resourceful. So then they realize that, okay, I don't know this in engineering. Who is the best person that I can reach out to who can tell me this? And because those people also start to respect these people because of whatever they have done, which is so great, everybody is ready to help. So I think that was one of my learnings and takeaways from as I was growing. So look at what, like, everybody comes in a company to do their best work. Nobody wants to do a bad work, right? So I think it is very, very critical for people to realize that we need to look at the strengths of people.
Sanchita, we talked about engineering, we talked about how to navigate your career as an engineer, but we didn't talk about one important topic, which is women in tech. If you are a woman and aspiring engineer and getting into engineering as a role and growing in the role to become a leader one day, I think you have gone through that journey. And I would love to know more about, what are your thoughts on women in tech and what would be your advice to others?
So I was born and brought up in a very cosmopolitan setup where my parents were both teachers. I was surrounded by a lot of professors. My friends had parents who were also professors. So I never felt that woman or girl wala problem, right? I was always a kid, and the kid that they wanted to excel in life, who they invested in terms of the growth part, the skills, and put it, a kid who was put into a good college, and they had certain thoughts on how I can do better, right? But like neither in my school nor in my college, I ever had a problem of girls being less. It was always a good girl to boy ratio. So this problem never occurred to me until my college. It was only later in my career that I realized it. But because by that time, my fundamentals were very sorted. I knew what my direction has to be, what path do I want to take. I also had good self-confidence, which a lot of girls are not able to develop. I think it was a slightly it was I would not want to use the word easy because you have to still put in that effort and everything, but it was a journey that I was very aware of how to undertake, right? But not everybody is that fortunate. That is also something that I realized, because when I joined Blinkit, even though all my managers and my seniors have always been so pro-women, the number of women was still 3 out of 30, 40 guys in engineering. Oh, even though we had a lot of girls in product, a lot of girls in who are data analysts or in QA engineering, but very few girls who were like engineers in product teams, right? And I think a lot of measures were definitely taken to improve that. But there's one thing that I would want to all the women engineers to know, that you are an engineer, period. The most critical thing that they need to remember is that while discrimination is bad, sometimes special attention is bad too, because it when you are under that light, you sometimes forget what is the true goal. Yeah. For us, the true goal is to learn those skills so that we can reach there, we can be better, right? And I think no matter the amount of attention, I think you should keep your eyes on the target. This is what I want to become. I want to become an engineer. These are 5 skills that I need to have. And how can I bridge that gap? What are the sources through which I can become better? And that's it. I think the second thing that I would like to say is I also had a lot of inspiring women around me. Even though we were just 3 to 4 girls. It was me, Sheena, Apurva and Shruti, who were the early engineers of Blinkit. But all of us were very supportive and inspiring of each other. Like I would see these girls doing such fantastic, coding challenges and problems. Each of them with their own perspectives, of course, right? But looking at them every day also made me or inspired me to be a better engineer. So it was not a feeling of competition. It was a feeling of how can I be somebody like them? How can I learn a thing or two from them, right? And then as career progressed, there were really good women role models like Visa, who was our business head, even though she had nothing to do with engineering, right? Uh, she played a huge role in my personal growth. She was somebody who was very instrumental in making me aware of my biases with respect to women in engineering, right? And that is very, very critical because there will be times when you will have certain processes which are very, very ingrained in you. No matter how good of a person you are, you will have certain biases that you need to work on, right? And having somebody like that who is taking in the effort and putting in that effort to make you realize those issues is something that you should totally cherish. And I think other than that, I think my recent team also had another engineer, Shivangi, another other designers like Sampada and Tanya. All these people kind of gave me a reason to look forward to doing new things every day. I've not only learned engineering related things, but I've actually learned so many life skills from them because of how they thought of certain things in their life, right? And I think above all, you also need, even though you have a lot of these inspirations around you, I think I'm not a person who gets super inspired by people who are very distant. I know there are a lot of people who admire people who are the best women engineers in the world. I feel usually more connected with people who are around me. And I think lastly, for me, the biggest role is how people who are going to be consistently there with you throughout your life, how are they supporting and encouraging you? So I think people underestimate the value of that one friend, that brother, that sister, that husband, that boyfriend who is constantly reading through all your documents and telling you and giving you a very critical feedback that this is not worth it. Because there has to be a person who has to be so brutally honest to you that other people usually are not able to. So I really, really value that as well. And I think having that support system around you is very, very important.
It was really nice having you on the podcast, Sanchita.
Thank you.
I had a very good time, and also I learned so much from how delivery companies work, the incentives, the behaviors, and how you guys thought about strategy from inside out. That was very interesting for me. And secondly, about engineering as a career, something I'm really passionate about because it's part of our focus here.
I can proudly say that my first podcast experience was very, very free-flowing and natural, and I absolutely loved it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.